She gave me 21 days to remove my bison from my own 9,200 acres, inherited 9,200 acres of Montana ranch land. And 3 weeks later, an HOA president gave me 21 days to remove every bison I owned. The strange part? Her HOA ended nearly half a mile before my fence. Then I noticed a road drawn across my pasture and realized the buffalo were never the real target. Stay with me, because what my father left in his files changed everything. And if you enjoy stories where patience, property rights, and the truth still matter, subscribe and ride along. 3 weeks after I inherited Bennett Ranch, Deborah Collins came to tell me I had 21 days to empty it. Not the house, not the barns, the bison. I was standing beside the eastern wooden gate when her black SUV rolled off the county road and stopped hard enough to throw dust against the fence posts. Beyond me, several hundred bison moved through the pasture in a slow, dark line, broad shoulders rising above the late summer grass. Deborah stepped out wearing a fitted tan coat and polished boots that had never touched mud on purpose. She carried a white envelope stamped with the blue crest of Silver Creek Ridge Homeowners Association, Cole Bennett. I looked at the envelope before I looked at her. That depends who's asking. Deborah Collins, HOA president. I know who you are. Her smile tightened. Silver Creek Ridge sat on the far side of the North Ridge, a newer development of stone front houses, decorative ponds, and roads with names like Aspen View and Elk Crossing, though most of the elk had stopped crossing after construction began. My ranch was not part of it, never had been. Deborah held out the envelope. This is formal notice. I took it. The first page read, Notice of Livestock Compliance Action. I read the next line twice. All bison must be permanently removed from the affected community impact area within 21 calendar days. I looked over the paper at her. What community impact area? Your eastern pasture. That pasture is on Bennett Ranch. We are aware. Then you are aware it isn't in your HOA. She folded her arms. Your herd presents an ongoing danger to Silver Creek Ridge residents, affects visual harmony, and creates a foreseeable liability issue. I glanced toward the nearest subdivision roofline. From where we stood, the houses were barely visible beyond the cottonwoods. My bison are behind 2 fences and half a mile of my own land. The association's council disagrees with your interpretation. My interpretation of where my property is? Her jaw moved slightly. I turned to the second page. Daily penalties, livestock nuisance assessments, administrative enforcement fees, potential legal costs. The total, if I refused to comply and they kept stacking charges, could climb past $300,000. I laughed once, but there was nothing funny in it. You're fining me $300,000 for animals standing on my ranch. We're giving you an opportunity to resolve the issue before it gets that far, by removing my herd. Behind us, one of the older bulls swung his head and snorted. Dust rose around his legs. Deborah glanced at him, then back at me. This kind of livestock may have been acceptable when this valley was mostly agricultural. Things are changing. That sentence hit harder than the notice. My father had been dead 23 days. Walter Bennett had spent 47 years keeping this ranch intact through drought, cattle crashes, tax fights, broken wells, and one winter that killed enough stock to make him stop talking about it altogether. I had buried him on the hill above the south pasture beside my mother. Now a woman from a subdivision built after most of our fence posts were already old was standing at his gate telling me the land had changed. I folded the notice once. My father ran bison here before Silver Creek Ridge existed. Deborah tilted her chin. Your father is no longer the owner. That was the moment my anger arrived. Not hot, not loud, just clean. I stepped closer to the gate, enough to make it clear she would not be coming through it. No, I said. I am. For the first time, her expression shifted, only for a second. Then she pointed to the signature line. You need to acknowledge receipt. I'll acknowledge I received paper. That is all we're asking today. Today? She ignored that. I signed only the receipt line, not the compliance agreement beneath it. When I handed the clipboard back, Deborah gave the page a quick look. You understand the deadline begins this morning. I understand what the paper says. 21 days goes faster than you think, Mr. Bennett. So does a bad legal argument. Her mouth hardened. You may want to consider what kind of relationship you want with your neighbors. They're not my HOA, they are still your community. Community doesn't create jurisdiction. That landed. She looked toward the ranch road running east behind me, then toward the small timber bridge crossing Cottonwood Draw. It was quick, but I saw it. 12 years helping my father manage this place had trained me to notice where people looked when they thought nobody was watching. Deborah looked at the road twice. Not the Bison, the road. She returned to her SUV. Before getting in, she said, "The board expects full compliance." I did not answer. She drove away. The dust settled slowly over the cattle guard. I stood there another minute before opening the packet again. The front pages were mostly threats dressed up in administrative language. Then I reached the attachment. A color map of Silver Creek Ridge and surrounding parcels. Our ranch boundary was shown in pale gray. Their development boundary was marked in blue. At least, that was how it should have looked. A thin line had been drawn from the subdivision's southern edge toward my property. It crossed the east pasture, past my wooden gate, ran over Cottonwood Draw, then followed my private ranch road west. Beside it, in small gray type, were 4 words: Future Community Connector Road. I stared at them. The line continued almost exactly where heavy construction trucks would want to travel if somebody planned to build beyond the existing subdivision. I turned the page over. No explanation, no easement number, no county reference, no recorded right-of-way, just a road drawn across land my family owned. The Bison moved behind me, calm and unaware. I looked from the map to the gate Deborah had studied before leaving. Then everything about the notice changed. The language about livestock, the threats, the deadline, the penalties. Maybe Deborah wanted the herd gone, but I no longer believed the herd was the reason she had come. I folded the map and put it in my shirt pocket. Then I locked the wooden gate. The buffalo were not what Deborah Collins really wanted. By 7 the next morning, I had Deborah's map spread across my father's kitchen table beside 3 older county plats. The new map showed Silver Creek Ridge pushing south toward Bennett Ranch. The old maps did not. I needed someone who could tell me which line mattered. Frank Miller answered on the 3rd ring. Frank was 71 and had spent 34 years surveying ranches, county roads, irrigation corridors, and subdivisions across that part of Montana. My father trusted him because Frank cared more about monuments than opinions. When I told him what Deborah had handled, he went quiet. "Don't move any stakes," he said. "I haven't. Don't pull signs either. Wasn't planning to." "Good. I'll be there in an hour." His faded pickup rolled through my gate 52 minutes later. I handed him Deborah's map. He studied it against the hood of his truck. "Future Community Connector Road," he read. "You ever heard of it?" "No." He looked toward the eastern pasture. "But somebody wants you to." We started at the north fence with an old county plat Frank had brought from his files. He checked 2 reference points, measured from a surviving stone marker, then walked us through sagebrush toward a shallow depression near the fence. He stopped. Here, I saw nothing. Frank kicked aside loose dirt, knelt, and scraped the ground with his glove. Iron appeared beneath the soil, a survey monument. He cleaned the stamped cap and compared its number with the plat. "This is the original Silver Creek Ridge boundary reference." I looked toward my Bison. "How far?" Frank checked his measurements. "From the HOA boundary to your nearest Bison pasture?" "Just under half a mile." I stared at him. "So Deborah has no jurisdiction here, not based on this plat. Could there be a newer annexation, not one that moves a recorded boundary without leaving a trail?" For the first time since Deborah arrived, I felt something close to relief. Then Frank stood and looked past me. His expression changed. "What?" He pointed toward the ranch road. 3 orange survey stakes stood beside it. I had driven past that stretch 2 days earlier. They had not been there. We walked over. Black marker had been written across the first ribbon. Phase 2 access. The second carried a station number. The third sat 20 feet inside Bennett Ranch. Frank photographed each one before touching anything. "Did you authorize survey work?" "No." "Your father, he would have told me." Frank crouched beside the nearest stake. "These are fresh." "How fresh?" "Probably days." I looked toward the road. It ran from the wooden gate across Cottonwood Draw, over the small timber bridge my father and I had rebuilt 12 years earlier, then curved west toward the equipment barn. It was useful to us because it connected the eastern pasture to the center of the ranch. To a developer, it would be something else. A ready-made corridor. I called Emily Carter. Emily was 38, a land use attorney in Helena who had helped my father through a water rights dispute 5 years earlier. By noon, she was looking at scanned copies of Deborah's notice, the HOA map, Frank's measurements, and the 1948 deed. Her first question was simple. "Did you ever sign anything with Silver Creek Ridge?" "No." "Did Walter?" "Not that I know of." "Do you pay assessments? Know any annexation agreement?" "No." "Then they don't get jurisdiction because somebody drew a line on a brochure." I heard pages turning. "What about the Buffalo order?" "Keep it. Keep the envelope. Keep proof of delivery. Don't throw away anything they send you." "You think they'll keep sending things?" "I think people bluffing about authority usually create a lot of paperwork trying to prove they have it." Frank gave a dry laugh from across the table. Then Emily stopped talking. "Cole." "What?" "The map Deborah gave you. Look at the connector road." I unfolded it again. "What about it? Where does the eastern end go?" I followed the gray line with my finger. Past Bennett Ranch. It disappeared into a blank section beyond the current Silver Creek Ridge lots. Emily emailed another document while we spoke, a county planning notice. I opened it. Silver Creek Ridge, Phase 2 Preliminary Review. The proposal covered land east and south of the existing subdivision. I scanned the first page. Residential expansion, utility extensions, road improvements. I reached the number and stopped. 186 proposed homes. Frank leaned over my shoulder. "That's not a neighborhood addition, no." Emily's voice came through the speaker. "Look at the transportation section." I found it. Primary construction access was listed as pending final easement confirmation. No road name, no easement number. But the route diagram matched Deborah's gray line. It came through my pasture, across my bridge, along my ranch road. I felt the relief from that morning disappear. The Buffalo notice was suddenly worth more than the paper it was printed on. It established pressure, the stakes established intent, and the development application established motive. Frank tapped the map. Somebody's planning around land they don't own. Emily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Cole, this isn't a livestock fight." I looked through the kitchen window toward the eastern pasture. The orange stakes were barely visible beyond the fence. "What is it?" "Someone is trying to create a road." After the call, Frank and I went back outside and photographed every stake from multiple angles. We measured each one against the recorded boundary and left all of them exactly where we found them. I wanted whoever placed them to believe I had not noticed. At sunset, I stood beside the wooden gate with Deborah's 21-day notice in one hand and the Phase 2 plan in the other. Silver Creek Ridge ended nearly half a mile away, yet somebody had already walked onto Bennett Ranch and marked a route for 186 homes. The question was no longer whether Deborah Collins had authority over my bison. She didn't. The question was why she and whoever stood behind Phase 2 believed they could manufacture authority over 9,200 acres they had never owned, and what they were willing to do when I refused to give them the road. I got my first answer 4 days later. Animal control pulled into Bennett Ranch just after 8 in the morning. The officer was polite, almost apologetic. "Anonymous complaint," he said. "Says your bison are getting through the perimeter fence and approaching the subdivision." I pointed toward the double fencing running the east pasture. "You see any breaks?" "No. We walked the line anyway." He checked gates, latches, tracks, and spacing. He photographed the herd from the county side of the fence and wrote his report from the hood of his truck. No escape evidence, no public hazard, no violation. Before leaving, he lowered his voice. Whoever complained gave pretty specific directions. What kind? They knew exactly which pasture to name. I wrote that down. 3 days later, county engineers came because someone reported uncontrolled runoff from Bennett Ranch was flooding Silver Creek Ridge drainage. There had been no flood. They checked Cottonwood Draw, my culverts, the small bridge, and the slope below the eastern pasture. Their conclusion was simple. The water flowed where county records said it always had. Complaint closed. The following Monday, Environmental Services arrived with sample bottles after another anonymous caller claimed manure runoff was contaminating a seasonal creek. They tested upstream, they tested downstream, they tested near the fence. The readings were normal. Complaint closed. By then, I stopped pretending it was coincidence. I bought a thick gray 3-ring binder from the farm supply store and wrote Silver Creek Ridge across the spine. Every complaint went inside. Every inspection report. Every photograph. Every certified letter. Every business card. Every date and time. Emily told me to keep the originals in one place and scan everything twice. People like Deborah win when the other side gets tired, she said. So don't get tired. The fourth complaint claimed my western fencing created an emergency evacuation hazard. The fifth said my equipment barn violated county setback rules. The sixth alleged my fuel storage endangered nearby residents. Each inspection ended the same way. No violation, no enforcement action, no basis for the complaint. Then came number 7. That one almost made Frank laugh. A county air quality officer drove out because someone had reported persistent airborne particulate matter generated by large livestock activity. I stared at him. "You mean dust?" He sighed. "What it appears to mean." The bison were grazing quietly in dry grass. There was barely enough wind to move the cottonwood leaves. He spent 40 minutes checking the site because that was his job. Then he handed me another clean report, 7 complaints. 7 inspections, 7 failures. I slid the latest report into the binder and realized something had changed. At first, every government vehicle coming down my road had made me angry. Now each one added another signature to my side. Deborah wanted a record showing Bennett Ranch was dangerous. Instead, she was building a record showing Bennett Ranch had been inspected repeatedly and cleared every time. That afternoon, a new certified letter arrived. Silver Creek Ridge had added an administrative review fee to my existing livestock notice. Emily read the page over the phone. "They're trying to make the paper stack look official. Can they collect it? Not if they have no jurisdiction. Then why keep doing it? Because paper scares people." I looked at my binder. Paper can also bury people. Emily was quiet for a second. Exactly. 2 evenings later, I was repairing a loose hinge on the equipment barn when the wind picked up. A handful of HOA notices I had been carrying blew from the tailgate of my pickup and slapped against the barn wall. One after another: livestock nuisance, drainage concern, safety review, air quality complaint. Different dates, different departments, same target. I gathered them and noticed something I had missed before: the timing. The complaints were not random. They landed every few days, never enough at once to look coordinated, never far enough apart to let the pressure disappear. Each new complaint arrived just as the previous inspection closed. I went inside and laid all 7 reports across the kitchen table. Frank's survey photograph sat at one end. The Phase 2 application sat at the other. I wrote the complaint dates in a row. Then I wrote Deborah's 21-day deadline above them. The pattern lined up too neatly. This was not a woman losing her temper. It was a schedule. Someone was using public agencies to keep me busy, make the ranch look unstable, and build enough noise around Bennett Ranch to support whatever came next. I called Emily. "You still think this is about the road? More than ever." Then somebody inside the HOA knows the sequence. "Probably. Can we prove it?" "Not yet." That word mattered. Yet. The next morning, I found a plain white envelope tucked beneath the windshield wiper of my pickup. No stamp, no return address. Inside was one sentence printed on ordinary paper. "You should look at where the HOA money is going." I read it twice. Then I looked toward the ridge. For the first time, it was clear that Deborah Collins was not the only person inside Silver Creek Ridge who knew exactly what was happening. And someone had just decided to talk. But before I could find out who, Emily called. "Cole, I found something in Walter's files." She had been working through the documents I'd scanned from my father's metal filing cabinet. Most were ordinary ranch records, tax receipts, fence agreements, water filings, bridge repairs. One document was different. "Look for a folder marked North Access," she said. I found it behind an old grazing lease. Inside was a yellowed agreement dated 28 years earlier. Limited seasonal road access license. My father's signature was at the bottom, so were 6 neighboring property owners. I remembered the story. Before the county improved the northern road, spring flooding sometimes cut several families off for days. Walter let them cross part of Bennett Ranch using our eastern road until the water dropped. I had always thought of it as a handshake favor. My father had been smarter than that. Emily read the controlling language aloud. "Access is limited to residential passage by the existing households identified herein during periods when ordinary public access is materially impaired." Then she stopped. "Now listen to this. The next paragraph prohibited commercial vehicles, construction traffic, road widening, public dedication, subdivision expansion, and transfer of the license to future parcels without the ranch owner's written consent." I sat back. "Nathan can't use it, not for Phase 2. What about the current homeowners? The qualifying households keep exactly what Walter gave them. Nothing we're doing changes that. That mattered to me. I wasn't interested in trapping families behind a legal technicality because Deborah wanted a fight. Then we protect their access. Absolutely. And separate them from the development. That's exactly what Walter's agreement does." An hour later, Frank arrived. He read the license, then spread the 1951 county road plat beside the newer Phase 2 transportation map. His finger traced my eastern ranch road, wooden gate, cottonwood draw, private timber bridge, eastern pasture, then the proposed development. "There's your problem," he said. "What?" "Terrain. The public road north of Phase 2 climbed around a rocky ridge before reaching the development parcel. Heavy equipment could get through, but improving it for hundreds of construction trips would require grading, drainage work, and a longer approach. My road was almost straight. "Cheaper," I said. "A lot cheaper." Emily joined us by video call. She had pulled Nathan Brooks's preliminary development filings. Nathan was 49 and had spent 15 years turning ranch edges into subdivisions. His company was promoting Phase 2 as 186 new homes with mountain views, walking trails, and direct connectivity to Silver Creek Ridge. The investor packet projected construction beginning within months. Then Emily found the transportation estimate. Using the northern route required major improvements. Using the community connector did not. Nathan wasn't fighting over convenience. He was fighting over the economics of the entire project. I took Deborah's original buffalo notice from the binder. 21 days, removed the herd from the eastern pasture. That same pasture contained the road. They clear the bison, I said. Then they say the road is safer for community use. Emily nodded. Or they use the livestock dispute to portray you as unreasonable until you negotiate. Frank tapped another page. And once construction traffic starts crossing regularly, the argument changes. They can claim established use, reliance, community necessity, whatever their lawyers think will stick. That explained the stakes. It did not explain how far they intended to go. Then a truck slowed on the county road outside. A silver pickup. It stopped beside the wooden gate. A man stepped out wearing a dark vest over a white shirt. I recognized him from the development application. Nathan Brooks. I walked outside. He stayed on the public side of the gate. Cole Bennett? You already know that. He smiled. Fair enough. His eyes moved past me toward the road, just like Deborah's had. I thought we should talk before this gets unnecessarily expensive. For who? His smile held. There are ways for everybody to benefit from growth. My buffalo included. Deborah can be aggressive. She works with you. She works for the association. And you need a road. That erased the smile. Only briefly. We need regional connectivity. You mean my road. We'd compensate you. Then why didn't you ask before your survey stakes appeared? His face went still. That was the first time I knew I had surprised him. Nathan glanced toward the pasture. Development is coming, Cole. You can work with it, or spend years fighting it. My father left an agreement covering this road. I know, that answer mattered. He knew about Walter's license. But you may want to have an attorney explain what decades of community use can become, he continued. I have an attorney. Good. Nathan returned to his pickup. Before climbing in, he looked back at the gate. 21 days is a long time for people to reconsider things. Then he drove away. I went back inside and told Emily exactly what he'd said. She was silent for several seconds. He knows the license exists, she said, and thinks he can get around it. Apparently. I looked down at Walter's signature. My father had protected 6 families without surrendering ownership. Nathan wanted to turn that generosity into a highway for 186 new houses. Now the Buffalo deadline made sense, so did the inspections, so did the stakes. They weren't trying to enforce HOA rules on Bennett Ranch. They were trying to make keeping the ranch more painful than surrendering part of it. And with 17 days already gone, I had 4 days left to find out what Deborah Collins intended to do when her deadline reached 0. The answer came that night. At 9:14, my phone rang from a blocked number. Is this Cole Bennett? Yes, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I keep the books for Silver Creek Ridge. I sat up. Did you leave something on my windshield? Silence then. We shouldn't talk on the phone. She gave me the address of a closed feed store 6 miles outside town and told me to come alone. I called Emily first. Don't take originals from her, she said. Copies only. And don't ask her to access anything she isn't authorized to see. 40 minutes later, Sarah pulled into the empty lot in a blue sedan. She was 44, dressed like she'd come straight from the HOA office, with a canvas document bag on the passenger seat. She kept checking her mirrors. Deborah reviews the office cameras, she said. And she's been asking who accesses the accounting system. Why contact me? Because I kept telling myself these were normal development expenses. She opened the bag. They aren't. The first document was an internal ledger. One category had been created less than 2 months earlier. Expansion compliance. What is that? I asked. Whatever Deborah needs it to mean. Shra showed me invoices, legal research concerning Bennett Ranch, private security consultation, survey work along my eastern boundary, a livestock contractor retainer. I stopped there. Livestock contractor? Paid deposit. Scheduled availability. For when? She slid another page toward me. The date was day 21. My stomach tightened. Sarah continued. Thousands of dollars had been moved from ordinary HOA accounts into expansion compliance. Some expenditures had no board authorization attached. Others had been entered under vague descriptions that concealed what they actually purchased. Does the board know? Not all of it. Who approves these? Deborah. And Nathan. He doesn't have access to HOA accounts, but his name keeps appearing in the correspondence. She reached into the bag again. This is why I called. It was an email chain. Nathan Brooks to Deborah Collins. The subject line read, Bennett Access Strategy. I read the first message. If Bennett won't grant access voluntarily, increase compliance pressure until carrying costs force cooperation. No ambiguity. No talk about dangerous bison. No concern about homeowners, access pressure, cooperation. Then Deborah's response. Day 21 gives us leverage. I read it again. What happens on day 21? Sarah shook her head. I don't know exactly. But Deborah reserved security. And there's a livestock contractor on the expense schedule. Animal control? She mentioned coordinating with them. Does she have a court order? Not that I've seen. I photographed every page Sarah was authorized to copy, then sent them to Emily. Sarah gathered the papers slowly. If she finds out I gave you these, I'm done. Then don't take another risk for me. She looked at me. This isn't only about you anymore. She told me Deborah had used the HOA's fear of declining property values to push decisions through quickly. Most residents had never seen the Phase 2 access assumptions. They thought Nathan's development would connect through public roads. They don't know his plan crosses your ranch. They're going to. The next morning, Emily sent a formal cease and desist letter to Deborah, the HOA board, Nathan, and their attorneys. It was precise. Bennett Ranch was outside HOA jurisdiction. The livestock notices were disputed in full. No person or contractor had permission to enter the ranch for enforcement purposes. Walter's limited seasonal license remained valid for qualifying existing households. Nothing in our position interfered with those residents, but no commercial, construction, subdivision, or HOA enforcement traffic was authorized. Emily ended with one sentence. Any attempted entry onto Bennett Ranch outside the recorded residential license will be documented and addressed through appropriate legal channels, Deborah replied before lunch. Not through counsel, directly. The association intends to enforce its rights on day 21, that was all. I forwarded it to Emily. She called immediately. Good. I almost laughed. I'm missing the good part. She just received a detailed notice explaining why she has no authority. And instead of producing a deed, easement, court order, or annexation record, she announced she's proceeding anyway, so now she can't easily claim confusion. I looked toward the eastern pasture. The herd was spread along the ridge. Sarah says they hired a livestock contractor. Then we prepare. For the next 3 days, I did exactly that. Not with weapons, with records. Frank rechecked the eastern boundary and marked the surveyed line clearly. I mounted 2 additional security cameras facing the wooden gate. Emily assembled copies of the deed, plats, inspection reports, access license, and cease and desist letter. I notified the sheriff's office that a disputed private enforcement action might occur on my property. Then I kept working. Day 18 passed. Day 19, day 20. That night, I placed the gray binder on the passenger seat of my pickup and parked where I could see the eastern gate from the house. Sleep came in pieces. At 5:37 the next morning, I woke to diesel engines. I stepped onto the porch. Headlights moved along the county road, 1 pair, then another, then 3 more. Large vehicles, slow vehicles. I checked my phone. Day 21. Through the darkness, the first livestock trailer turned toward Bennett Ranch, then a second appeared behind it, then a third. Sarah had been right. The deadline had never been a threat on paper. It was an appointment. By 5:45, 3 livestock trailers were parked along the county road outside Bennett Ranch. An animal control truck stopped behind them. 2 white SUVs carried magnetic signs reading Silver Creek Ridge Community Security. Deborah's black SUV pulled in next, followed by Nathan Brooks in a dark pickup. I counted 11 people. None had permission to enter. I put on my coat, grabbed the gray evidence binder and my phone. then walked to the wooden gate. I did not open it. Behind me, the bison had begun moving toward the north end of the pasture, disturbed by the diesel engines, but still contained behind the interior fence. Deborah stepped forward. You were notified. So were you. I held up Emily's cease and desist letter. She ignored it. We are conducting an emergency livestock compliance removal. Under whose authority? The association board. Your board doesn't own this ranch. She produced a document from a leather folder. Across the top, emergency compliance resolution. I read the first page through the gate, signed by Deborah and 2 board members. No judge, no county seal, no warrant, no livestock emergency order. I handed it back. This is permission from you to you. Her face hardened. The HOA has determined your animals pose an immediate threat to residents. Animal control inspected them 17 days ago. The animal control officer standing near his truck shifted uncomfortably. I recognized him, same man as the first inspection. I looked at him. Did your department issue a seizure order? No. Deborah turned sharply. We coordinated this action. He shook his head. We were asked to attend. That's different. That was the first crack. I started recording. I'm stating this clearly for everyone here. Bennett Ranch is private property. Silver Creek Ridge ends almost half a mile from this gate. Nobody has permission to enter for HOA enforcement or livestock removal. One contractor leaned toward another. Deborah heard him. You're under contract, she snapped. The older man looked at her. My contract says lawful access will be provided. Nathan stepped forward. Cole, this doesn't need to become theater. You brought 3 livestock trailers to my gate before sunrise. You've had 21 days to do something you can't legally require. He lowered his voice. Open the gate. Let them move the herd temporarily. Then we can discuss the access corridor like adults. There it was. Not safety, not livestock, the road. I kept my phone pointed at him. You're connecting removal of my bison to access across my ranch? Nathan saw the phone. His expression changed. I said we can discuss outstanding issues. That's not what you said. Deborah moved between us. Stop recording. No, you do not have my consent. You're standing outside my gate demanding entry onto my property. She turned toward the security supervisor. Remove him from the access point. The man didn't move. He looked at the fence, then at the county road beneath his boots. Ma'am, he's on his side of the gate. For the second time that morning, Deborah's authority failed in front of people she had hired. Then Nathan walked back to the lead contractor truck. I couldn't hear the first words. I heard the last ones. You have access. Move forward. The driver hesitated. Nathan pointed toward the ranch road. This is an established community corridor. It wasn't. The truck rolled, slowly. Its bumper crossed the plane of the gate, then the front tires passed the orange marker Frank had placed at the surveyed property line. I photographed the first tire, then the second. Stop, I said. The driver hit the brakes. The engine idled 10 yards inside Bennett Ranch. Nobody spoke. Nathan had just done what Emily warned them not to do in writing. I called the sheriff's office. This is Cole Bennett at Bennett Ranch. A commercial vehicle has entered my property after written notice denying access. We have a disputed HOA enforcement action underway. The dispatcher already had the note from my earlier call. Units are responding. Deborah folded her arms. You're wasting law enforcement's time. Then they'll tell me. Nathan approached the gate again. You really want to turn a road disagreement into a trespass case. You ordered the truck across. This road has been used by Silver Creek Ridge residents for decades. Residents. I let the word sit there. My father's agreement doesn't say developers. His eyes narrowed. Your father's agreement isn't the only law that matters. No. That's why we're waiting for the sheriff. The next 20 minutes were the longest of the morning. Nobody moved. The contractor refused to advance farther. Animal control stayed beside its truck. The security men kept their distance. Deborah made 3 phone calls. Nathan made 2. I photographed license plates, company names, vehicle positions, and the truck sitting beyond the surveyed line. Then I heard a siren once in the distance. Not screaming toward us, just enough to clear the intersection. A county cruiser appeared beyond the cottonwoods. Deborah straightened. Nathan stepped away from the truck. Sheriff Daniel Hayes pulled onto the shoulder, shut off his lights, and climbed out carrying nothing but a small notebook. He looked at the trailers, then the HOA security vehicles, then the contractor truck sitting inside my boundary. Finally, he looked at me. "Morning, Cole." "Sheriff?" He nodded toward the gate. "Looks like everybody brought paperwork." I lifted the gray binder. I brought mine. Deborah raised her resolution. So did we. Hayes looked from one document to the other. "Good." He walked towards us. "Then nobody moves another inch until I read it." Behind me, hundreds of bison stood untouched in the pasture. For 21 days, Deborah had been counting down to this morning. Now the countdown was over, and for the first time, she was going to have to explain her authority to someone who could ask her to prove it. Sheriff Daniel Hayes started with Deborah. "Show me what authorizes the removal." She handed him the HOA resolution. He read the first page, then the second. "Where's the court order?" "There isn't one." "County livestock seizure?" "No." "Emergency declaration?" "The board determined." Hayes raised one hand. "I asked what legal authority permits you to enter Bennett Ranch and remove privately owned livestock." Deborah's answer came slower. "The HOA has enforcement rights affecting the community." Hayes looked toward me. "Your documents." I opened the gray binder on the hood of his cruiser. First, the deed, then Frank's survey showing Silver Creek Ridge ending nearly half a mile before the bison pasture, then 7 inspection reports, then Walter's seasonal access license. Hayes read that one longer than the others. Nathan stepped closer. "That road has been used by residents for decades." Hayes did not look up. "I'm reading." The road went quiet except for the idling contractor truck. Hayes reached the restrictions section. Residential passage for identified households. Seasonal need. No commercial traffic. No construction traffic. No subdivision expansion. No road widening. No public dedication without written consent from the ranch owner. He read one paragraph twice, then he closed the document. "This is pretty clear." Nathan folded his arms. "It's not that simple. Long-term community use creates additional rights." "Maybe that's an argument for a judge," Hayes said. "It is not permission for you to send a commercial truck across a surveyed property line this morning." He turned toward the driver. "Back it out." Nathan stepped forward. "Sheriff." Hayes looked at him. I said, "Back it out." The contractor did not wait for another instruction. The truck reversed slowly until both front tires were back on the county side. Then Hayes addressed the other drivers. "No livestock trailer enters this ranch. No HOA security vehicle enters. Animal control remains here only in its official capacity. And since there is no seizure order, nobody touches the herd." Deborah's face flushed. "You are allowing one rancher to obstruct an entire community." "No," Hayes said. "I'm preventing a private association from acting like it has powers it hasn't shown me." That landed harder than anything I could have said. Deborah pointed at the wooden gate. "He's cutting residents off from established access," I answered before Hayes could. "Residents keep every right my father gave them. Nathan's bulldozers don't." A few people near the trailers turned toward Nathan. That distinction had never been part of Deborah's public story. She had spent 3 weeks making it sound as if I wanted to isolate Silver Creek Ridge. I didn't. Walter's agreement protected real households. What it did not protect was a 186-home development Nathan wanted to push through my land. Hayes reopened the license. "Mr. Bennett is correct. Existing qualifying residential access is one thing. Commercial or subdivision access is expressly excluded. Nathan's jaw tightened. You're making a legal determination on the side of a road. No. I'm making a trespass determination based on where that truck was sitting and the documents currently in front of me. He pointed toward the county road. If you believe you own broader rights, file for them. Deborah looked at me. This is not over. I know. Emily arrived 20 minutes later. She had left Helena before sunrise after I called. By then, the livestock contractors were loading paperwork back into their cabs. She photographed the vehicles, reviewed my video, and asked Hayes for the incident number. Then she read Walter's license again. Her attention stopped near the bottom of the restrictions section. Cole. I knew that tone. What? She pointed to a paragraph I had seen but never fully understood. It allowed the ranch owner to enforce or seek termination of access privileges when the licensed route was deliberately used for prohibited commercial expansion after written notice. I looked toward the truck Nathan had ordered across my line. Does this count? Possibly. Nathan heard her. His expression changed immediately. Emily kept her voice calm. You received written notice that commercial use was prohibited. Then you instructed a contractor to enter under a claim of development access. That truck was here for livestock compliance. Emily glanced toward the trailers. Then your problem gets worse, because the HOA has no livestock jurisdiction here either. For once, Nathan had no fast answer. Deborah tried to regain control. You cannot punish homeowners because of one disputed vehicle. We aren't, Emily said. Existing residents keep lawful access. But you may have just given Cole grounds to enforce the very restrictions your development needs him to ignore. Silence settled over the road. No shouting, no dramatic arrest, just the sound of diesel engines shutting down one by one. That silence felt better than victory. The herd was still behind my fence. The wooden gate was still mine. Every trailer Deborah had brought was leaving empty. By 8:30, the last contractor pulled away. Hayes handed me his card. Keep everything, I already am. He glanced at the binder. I noticed. Before leaving, he looked toward Nathan. If anybody returns without proper authority, call us before they cross. Nathan said nothing. Deborah climbed into her SUV and slammed the door. 21 days of threats ended without one buffalo leaving Bennett Ranch. I thought that might be the moment the pressure finally broke. I was wrong. At 4:52 that afternoon, a process server drove through my gate with permission and handed me a thick envelope. Nathan Brooks had filed suit. He was asking a judge to declare my Eastern Ranch Road a permanent community access corridor. The trailers had failed, so now he was going after the road directly. Nathan's lawsuit claimed the Eastern Ranch Road had become a permanent community corridor through decades of continuous use. The filing used photographs of Silver Creek Ridge residents driving across Bennett Ranch during spring floods. It cited delivery records, emergency vehicle access, old maintenance notes. At first glance, it looked dangerous. Emily read the complaint at my kitchen table while I stood beside the window. He's building an argument around reliance, she said. On a road my father owned. Yes, and licensed. Yes, then how does he think this works? Because he wants the court to focus on use before it focuses on permission. That was the whole case. Nathan wanted history without context. He wanted photographs of cars on my road without the document explaining why they were there. He wanted decades of neighborly permission to look like ownership. The next morning, Emily filed our response. We did not deny that residents had used the road. We admitted it. Then we attached Walter's license, existing households, seasonal access, no commercial traffic, no subdivision expansion, no transfer to future parcels, no public dedication. Emily looked at me after filing. His problem is simple. What? You can't usually turn licensed use into hostile ownership while the license is controlling the use. For the first time since the suit arrived, I felt the pressure loosen. Then discovery started. Nathan's lawyers requested road maintenance records, tax records, gate photographs, bridge invoices, and decades of correspondence. We gave them what the rules required. Emily requested the same from them: Phase 2 transportation studies, investor presentations, HOA communications, survey instructions, internal emails concerning Bennett Ranch. Deborah's lawyers objected to half of it. Emily narrowed the requests and filed a motion to compel the rest. Judge Rebecca Lawson granted most of it. That changed the mood. Paper began arriving, boxes first, then digital files. Frank helped organize the maps. Sarah helped explain the HOA accounting references. I kept adding tabs to the gray binder until it barely closed. One set of old photographs showed exactly what Nathan wanted: Silver Creek Ridge families crossing my road during a flood 15 years earlier. Another showed a county ambulance using the bridge after the northern road washed out. Nathan's attorneys highlighted both. Community necessity, they called it. Emily highlighted something else. The gate was visible in every photograph, closed at normal times, opened during flooding, controlled by Walter. That isn't public ownership, she said. That's permission being exercised exactly as written. Then Frank found an old county maintenance map. The public road ended before Bennett Ranch. No county crew had ever accepted my road into the public system. The bridge remained private. The gate remained private. The drainage strip remained private. Nathan's case still had enough surface appeal to worry me. But every document we found pulled the facts back toward the same point. Use had occurred. Ownership had not changed. The real shift came 3 weeks into discovery. Emily called me into her office. Sarah was already there. A stack of printed emails sat on the table. These were produced this morning, Emily said, by Nathan, by his company. She handed me the first page. The subject line read, Phase 2 Access Resolution. Nathan had written to Deborah months before she ever drove on to Bennett Ranch. The message discussed construction timing, investor expectations, and my father's road. Then came the sentence that changed everything. Existing residential use can support the public access narrative if Bennett resists. I read it twice. Emily slid another page toward me. Deborah's reply: the Buffalo issue gives us a clean pressure point. Once he is dealing with compliance exposure, road dedication becomes negotiable. My jaw tightened. Sarah looked sick. There are more, she said. There were. Nathan discussing carrying costs. Deborah discussing enforcement visibility. A consultant recommending multiple regulatory contacts so Bennett would face parallel administrative friction. My 7 complaints had not been spontaneous. They had been part of a strategy. Emily leaned back. They didn't just misunderstand Walter's license. They knew exactly what it said. Yes, and tried to manufacture something broader. Yes, that mattered. It turned the case from a dispute over old road use into something uglier. A developer and an HOA president had looked at a limited private permission and decided pressure might convert it into a development asset. I looked at Sarah. Did the board know? Not like this, residents, no investors? Answered that one. That's what we're checking next. The following day, Nathan's lawyers produced a Phase 2 investor presentation. Page 14 showed transportation access. A clean line ran through Bennett Ranch. Not proposed, not disputed, not subject to negotiation. It was labeled Primary Community Connector. Below it, access assumed secured. I stared at the words. Nathan had been telling investors he had something he was still trying to force me to give him. Emily tapped the page. This creates a motive for everything that happened before day 21. Can he still win the road case? He can still argue. That wasn't my question. She looked at me. No, his position just got much harder. For the first time, Nathan's paperwork was doing to him what Deborah's complaints had done to her. The more they produced, the clearer the pattern became. But Emily was not done. That evening she called and told me to bring every original document Walter had ever kept about the road. Why? Because something in one of Nathan's emails references an amendment. I stood in front of my father's old filing cabinet. What amendment? I don't know yet. I opened the drawer. For 28 years, everyone had been arguing over what Walter gave away. Now we were about to find out whether he had quietly written down what he never intended to give them at all. I emptied my father's filing cabinet onto the kitchen table. Tax records, bridge receipts, fence agreements, old insurance papers. Then, inside a narrow envelope marked Access, Revised, I found a single folded page. Walter's handwriting ran across the bottom. The page amended the seasonal road license. I called Emily before I finished reading it. She arrived that afternoon with Frank. The amendment was short. Existing residential households retained the same limited seasonal access, but any future subdivision, parcel split, or residential expansion beyond those households created no automatic right of passage across Bennett Ranch. No additional lots, no transferred expansion rights, no assumption that access grew simply because the neighborhood did. Emily read the paragraph twice. Then she looked at me. This is what Nathan was afraid of. Frank checked the date and notary information, valid signature, proper witness, same legal description. Emily nodded, and it matches the original license. I felt something in my chest loosen. Not because the fight was over, because for the first time, I could see exactly where it ended. Judge Rebecca Lawson heard the case 6 days later. The courtroom was small and packed. Silver Creek Ridge residents filled the back rows. Sarah sat near Emily with the accounting records. Frank carried the original plats. Nathan sat with 2 attorneys. Deborah sat behind him, her face controlled but pale. Emily started with ownership. Frank testified that the eastern road, bridge, gate, and drainage strip remained inside Bennett Ranch. He showed the original survey, then the updated county plat, then the iron monument coordinates. Nathan's attorney tried to suggest decades of use had changed the practical character of the road. Frank answered simply, use doesn't move a survey monument. Next came that license. Emily did not hide the fact that residents had crossed my property for years. She emphasized it. Mr. Bennett's father gave permission, correct? Frank nodded. To specific households under specific conditions. Yes. Did the agreement authorize future subdivisions? No. Commercial construction traffic. No. Road widening. No public dedication. No. Then Sarah testified. Her hands trembled when she began. They stopped trembling when Emily placed the expansion compliance ledger in front of her. Sarah explained the unauthorized spending, legal pressure, survey work, private security, livestock contractor deposits, then the emails. Nathan's message appeared on the courtroom monitor. If Bennett won't grant access voluntarily, increase compliance pressure until carrying costs force cooperation. A murmur moved through the room. Judge Lawson looked toward Nathan's table. Emily showed the next message. Deborah's reply, Day 21 gives us leverage, then the investor presentation, primary community connector. Access assumed secured. Emily let the slide remain on the screen. When was that access secured? She asked Nathan during examination. He shifted in his chair. It was expected to be resolved. That isn't what the slide says. It reflects planning assumptions. Planning assumptions about land owned by someone else? His attorney objected. Judge Lawson overruled. Nathan looked toward me. For months, he had treated my road like an unfinished business negotiation. Now he had to explain why he had sold investors on access he did not possess. Then Emily introduced Walter's amendment. That changed the room. She handed copies to both sides and the judge. Nathan's attorney stood immediately. We need time to examine this. You received the underlying document request, Emily said. This amendment was only recently located. Judge Lawson studied the page. When was it executed? Emily gave the date. Frank confirmed the legal description. The notary record matched. The language was plain. No automatic access rights for future subdivision beyond the existing households. Nathan's 186 homes were not included. They never had been. His attorney tried one last argument. Your Honor, the community's long-standing reliance should be considered in light of present development needs. Judge Lawson looked over her glasses. Present development needs do not rewrite a private license. The room went still. Then she continued. The existing residents are one category. Future lots are another. Nathan's attorney said nothing. Judge Lawson turned one page. Development does not enlarge a permission your client never owned. I heard someone behind me exhale. That sentence ended more than an argument. It separated the neighbors from Nathan's project. It protected the people my father intended to help, and it denied the developer the right to use those people as a bridge into my property. But Emily was not finished. She asked the court to consider Deborah and Nathan's conduct separately from the access claim, the repeated complaints, the misleading enforcement notices, the unauthorized livestock action, the attempted commercial entry after written warning, the internal emails tying compliance pressure directly to road access. Judge Lawson looked toward Deborah, then Nathan. The court will issue findings on those matters with the final order. That was when the victory stopped feeling simple. Nathan could no longer take my road. But the court had not yet decided what months of pressure, false authority, and deliberate overreach were going to cost them. And for the first time, Deborah Collins looked like she understood that Day 21 might have created consequences for her, too. Judge Rebecca Lawson issued the final order 9 days later. Emily called before sunrise. It's filed. I drove to her office with the gray binder on the passenger seat. The document was 37 pages. The important part took less than one. Bennett Ranch had never been part of Silver Creek Ridge. The HOA possessed no authority to regulate my bison, barns, fences, pastures, or ranch operations. Every livestock penalty issued against me was unenforceable. The Eastern Ranch Road remained private. So did the wooden gate. So did the bridge across Cottonwood Draw. Walter's seasonal license remained valid for the existing qualifying households, exactly as he intended. But neither Silver Creek Ridge nor Nathan Brooks had acquired construction, commercial, public, or subdivision expansion rights. Phase 2 could not use Bennett Ranch. I read that sentence twice. Emily pointed lower on the page. There, Judge Lawson also found that Nathan's attempted commercial entry on Day 21 violated the restrictions after written notice had been given. That allowed me to enforce the license provisions against prohibited use while preserving lawful residential passage. Exactly what we had asked for. No revenge against the neighbors. No punishment for families who had done nothing wrong. Just a boundary between permission and exploitation. Nathan's lawyers filed notice that they were reviewing their options. It did not save Phase 2. Without my ranch road, construction traffic had to approach from the north through steep ground that required major grading, drainage work, and road reinforcement. The revised cost estimate reached investors within 2 weeks. The first financing partner withdrew, then another. By the end of the month, Nathan suspended the 186-home project. The Orange Phase 2 access stakes disappeared from my pasture under supervision after Emily demanded their removal. I kept one, not as a trophy, as evidence. Deborah's collapse happened more slowly. Sarah gave the Silver Creek Ridge Board the expansion compliance records. Once residents saw where their money had gone, the questions became impossible to control. Why had HOA funds paid for pressure against land outside the association? Who authorized the livestock contractor? Why had private security been hired? Why were residents told I planned to cut off their road when Emily's letters explicitly protected lawful household access? At the next membership meeting, Deborah tried to call the spending necessary legal defense. Sarah put the invoices on the screen, then she displayed Deborah's email. Day 21 gives us leverage. The room turned on her. Deborah lost the presidency that night. The new board suspended the expansion compliance account, ordered an independent review, rescinded every notice issued against Bennett Ranch, and sent Emily a written acknowledgement that Silver Creek Ridge ended at its recorded boundary. Sarah stayed long enough to help reconstruct the books. For the first time since I'd met her, she stopped checking over her shoulder when she spoke. Nathan never apologized. I didn't expect him to. A month after the ruling, his company removed Phase 2 from its website. That was enough. The hardest decision was the road. Legally, after everything that happened, Emily told me I had strong grounds to tighten enforcement. Some people expected me to lock the gate and make Silver Creek Ridge live with what Deborah had started. I thought about it. Then I thought about Walter. He had not granted that seasonal license to an HOA. He had granted it to families, people whose road flooded, parents trying to get children to school, older residents trying to reach town. They had not ordered my buffalo removed. They had not sent contractors onto my ranch, so I kept their access. Frank helped me mark the route exactly as the license described. I repaired 2 bad boards on the timber bridge and replaced the weathered sign beside the gate. The new one was plain black lettering on white steel. Gwinnett Ranch Private Road Residential Access by recorded license only, no commercial or construction traffic, no threats. No insults, just the truth. Winter came early that year. One evening, I drove to the eastern pasture after the first heavy snow. The valley had gone quiet. Silver Creek Ridge sat across the distance with lights appearing one house at a time. Closer to me, dark shapes moved through the white field, the bison. Every one of them exactly where Deborah Collins had ordered them not to be. I shut off the pickup. For a moment, the silence reminded me of the weeks after my father died. That empty kitchen, his coat still hanging by the door, the feeling that 200 acres could somehow be too much land for one person and still feel lonely. I reached behind the seat and pulled out Walter's old ranch notebook. Near the back, beside a list of fence repairs, he had written one sentence: "A boundary only matters if the next man is willing to stand behind it." I understood it differently now. Standing behind a boundary did not mean threatening everyone on the other side. It meant knowing where the line was, knowing why it existed, and refusing to let fear, money, or manufactured authority move it. Deborah had mistaken restraint for weakness. Nathan had mistaken permission for ownership. They both thought enough pressure could turn a private road into their road. They were wrong. I had never needed to scream louder than them. I needed the deed, Frank's survey, Walter's license, Sarah's records, Emily's legal work, Sheriff Hayes's incident report, and the patience to let their own documents tell the truth. The herd moved slowly toward the cottonwoods. One old bull stopped near the fence, snow collecting across his shoulders. 3 months earlier, Deborah had stood at that same wooden gate and given me 21 days to empty Bennett Ranch. The 21 days came, then they went. The bison never left. The families my father chose to help kept their road access. The 186 houses Nathan planned to push through my pasture never broke ground. And the only thing that disappeared from Bennett Ranch was the development road they thought they could steal. My father had protected this land for most of his life. When my turn came, I finally understood how he had done it. Not with anger, not with force, with patience, paper, and the willingness to stand behind the line.
That's what Scott's story lived with me. His father had been careful enough to put a symbol art or neighborly kindness in writing, and years later, that piece of paper protected both their ranch and the families it was meant to have. Con didn't have to punish innocent homeowner because of what Deborah and Nathan tried to do. He could defend what belonged to him while still honoring the promise his father had made. There's a lesson in that, especially for those of us who live long enough to know that good intention aren't always enough. Keep your records, know what you have agreed to, understand where your responsibility begins and where someone else's authority ends. And when you wrestle to make a decision out of fear, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is slow down, gather the facts, and let the truth speak clearly. In the end, the Bison stayed on Village Range. The existing families kept their lawful seasonal access, and Con reserved his fatherland without becoming the kind of person he was standing against. That's kind of justice worth remembering. If you believe Con was right to stand his ground while still protecting his neighbor, type yes in the comments. And if you ever deal with an HOA, property line dispute, or somebody claiming authority they didn't have, I'd like to hear your story too. If you enjoy stories about ordinary Americans protecting their land, their dignity, and their rights with patience and common sense, subscribe and stay with us. There are more HOA and rent story ahead. There are more HOA and rent story ahead.